visitors to, thanks, Chris. If you all are routine visitors to TJC's monthly anti-hunger meeting, you'll notice that we've changed up who's hosting it this month. So this month we are really going to dive into some WIC related material, and so the WIC team will be taking the charge. But today we're going to be talking about the WIC vendor and the WIC participant and their shared experience around shopping. So we will dive right in. My name is Anna Grace. I work as our WIC referral and data specialist. We have lots of members of our nutrition team on the call, and I'm going to pass it to them to introduce themselves.
Hi, my name is Chris Riles, anti-hunger advocate.
My name is Geraldine, and I'm the Key Nutrition Fellow at SNAP.
My name is Gary Darsh. I am the nutrition intern here at TJC.
Awesome. And then I'm Ann Dobson. I'm our WIC partnership and outreach coordinator. Okay, so for those of you that are not familiar, here at the Tennessee Justice Center, we do a lot around anti-hunger work. You've just met our anti-hunger team, and I'm going to give you a quick overview of our advocacy work. So our mission is to end hunger in Tennessee by protecting and strengthening the federal nutrition programs such as SNAP, WIC, and various child nutrition programs. We do this through a few different ways. We work to improve access and remove barriers to programs by providing direct client assistance and doing outreach. We also work to advocate for solutions to systemic issues by providing policy expertise. And then we are always educating and informing our statewide partners about the nutrition safety net. Okay, the other thing we want to cover are the various federal nutrition programs. There are quite a few. Like I just mentioned, we largely focus here on SNAP, WIC, and then a few of the child nutrition programs like summer EBT, but this is a comprehensive list. Of course, today we will just be talking about WIC. So for the next about 57 minutes that you have with us, I'm going to give you a quick preview of what we'll be talking about. The first thing is that we'll talk a little bit more about WIC and what the program is, and then we'll give you an overview of our WIC Chow grant and the work that we're doing. We will then we'll then cover our WIC participant research and hear from a Davidson County mom and WIC shopper. We'll then dive into our WIC grocer research and hear from a WIC grocer, David. And then we'll have some room for discussion and questions, and we'll wrap up by sharing the toolkit and resources that we have here at the Tennessee Justice Center to share with you. Okay, so what is WIC? WIC stands for the Special Supplemental Nutrition Program for Women, Infants, and Children. It is a health support and food benefits program specifically targeting pregnant and postpartum people, infants, and children up to age 5. WIC provides an EBT card with funds to buy specific nutritious foods. It also provides nutrition education and counseling by WIC registered dietitian staff. There is also breastfeeding education and support also provided by WIC staff who are IBCLCs and CLCs. And then WIC also does referrals for other health and social service programs as well. WIC is unique because of its eligibility. Like I just mentioned, there's the categorical, but there are also a few other things we want to cover. So to be eligible for WIC, you have to meet the income. That is 185% of the federal poverty level. So you either be at 185% or below. Participation in SNAP, TennCare, or TANF, called Families First here in Tennessee, is sufficient to prove that you are income eligible. Once you meet the income, you have to meet the categorical eligibility. Like I just shared, that means that you are pregnant, postpartum, breastfeeding, or your child under the age of 5. Something important to note is that caregivers and foster parents of children under 5 are also eligible for the program for those young children in their care. Then there's residency. Of course, you have to live in the state of Tennessee to participate in Tennessee WIC. However, it's really important to note that there's no citizenship status needed here, just a simple proof that you reside in this state. And then the final piece is nutritional risk. This is very essential to the WIC program and the benefits package that you're given. You just prove some form of nutritional risk for that pregnant or young child applying. Okay. All right, we'll keep moving. And if you have questions, please feel free to just put them in the chat, and Chris will be monitoring it and will let us know as they come on. Okay, so WIC Community Innovation and Outreach Grant. Like we just mentioned, Anna Grace and I are doing this work funded by the WIC Chow Grant, and we want to give you a quick overview. The WIC Chow Grant is from the USDA and has been given to 36 projects across the US. Tennessee Justice Center is one of those. Our focus here in Tennessee is to increase WIC awareness and participation. We are doing this through 3 focus areas. The first is to improve access for Black, Latino, Hispanic, Arab, immigrant, low English proficient communities and children ages 1 to 5. We are also working to strengthen the connection between WIC and healthcare providers through the referral process. And then we are hoping to improve the benefit redemption and the WIC grocery store experience, specific to today's call and what we hope you're here to learn about as well. On the right, you'll see our grant partners. We're working with a variety of organizations across the state, the first being Latino Memphis, of course, in Memphis, Tennessee, the Tennessee Immigrant and Refugee Rights Coalition here in Nashville. We're working with the pediatrician at Vanderbilt University Medical Center. And then we are also working with the Tennessee Grocers and Convenience Store Association, who have been very vital partners for the work we're about to share with you today.
Okie dokie. So we are going to just dive right into things like Chris put in the chat and Ann Dobson has mentioned. If you all have any questions or comments, or maybe we're running through the information too quickly, feel free to put something in the chat or come off mute, and we can address whatever the need may be. But we wanted to start by just kind of briefly mentioning the general benefits of WIC. So the list is quite long, but very broadly, because WIC provides pregnant, postpartum, breastfeeding people and children ages 1 through 5 an EBT card to buy specific nutritious food, we know that that improves dietary intake. It reduces food insecurity. Having access to food also provides support to continue to grow economically, so it alleviates poverty. There's also lots of research around the improvement of birth outcomes when moms and their babies have access to the nutritious food they need to develop and grow. It improves long-term health outcomes and then supports just the general healthy growth and development of young children. So when someone's talking about WIC, advocates in our space easily talk about all of these benefits. What is talked about less that we're really hoping to dig into in this call is the economic benefits of WIC. So we like to say that WIC dollars are just as green as any other dollar. A grocer theoretically has no preference if you're bringing in a WIC or SNAP EBT card versus a Visa or a debit card versus cash. And so we know that when families have access to WIC benefits, that is money that is being spent in grocery stores that otherwise would not be spent. And so we know that an increase to WIC increases spending in stores. We also know that there is research out there that supports that WIC decreases future spending on Medicaid. And so if you're really interested in that, we've got a source on the right hand. You can look at the National WIC Association information, but the research shows that for every $1 spent on WIC, there is $1.77 to $3.13 in reduction of future Medicaid costs. So part of what's bringing us here today is that because we know that WIC supports the participant and because we know that WIC also supports the grocer, we want to find a happy medium. How can we connect more families to WIC while also recognizing that that connection would be a benefit to retailers across Tennessee? So a piece of our research that we're going to dig into first is around the WIC participant. So like Ann Dobson mentioned when she was briefly giving an overview of the WIC Chow project, we talked about the fact that we are working with the eligible individual, we're working with healthcare providers, and we're working with grocers. So this research is specific to the WIC participant. So we distributed a survey statewide that totaled 392 responses, and those respondents ranged from a current participant of WIC, someone who had previously participated, or someone who had never had participated in WIC. And then in addition, we did some qualitative research and have conducted 5 focus groups, but by the end of this grant period, we'll have conducted 7. So stay tuned for more information on this, but we just wanted to run through a couple of things specific to this survey. Oh, I knew it was going to do that. So, obviously not every piece of the survey for eligible population, had something to do with the shopping experience. And so we've pulled out the pieces of that survey that have to do with our conversation today about the WIC vendor and the WIC participant and how we can make the shopping experience better. But we wanted to note that, in the survey, respondents were asked to share a percentage of about how much they use each month of their WIC package. And so you can see here in the graph and then on the left that only 67% of respondents stated that they used 100% of their WIC benefit package. So when we're talking about the general health and economic benefits of WIC, we know that that means there is money going unspent in grocery stores, and that means that there are health benefits going unused by participants. The next piece of information that we wanted to highlight, and I know that this chart on this slide and the chart on the next slide is a little bit daunting to the naked eye. So hopefully, if you have more interest, you can see this for more time in the follow-up email. But these are all the agree and disagree statements that were asked of respondents in the survey that pertain to the shopping experience. And so you can see my shoddy highlights here, just to highlight a couple of things. The vast majority of participants responded that the TN WIC card was easy to use. Also, you can see that we asked in 2 different places in the survey, actually, that for respondents to express how much of their benefits they used. And the stat on the previous slide of 67% said they used 100% of their benefits. That's actually from a separate question. And so I think it's quite fascinating here that also in the question asking how much of the WIC benefits they used each month, 60% of respondents responded that they strongly agree that they use all of their benefits. One other thing I wanted to point out, just some discrepancies in the data, is this stat down here that less than 1% disagreed that they understand what their WIC benefits allow them to buy, which you would read that and say, oh, so everyone understands what their WIC benefits allow them to buy. But much of our conversation today will be around just like general confusion that is reported from both the grocer and the participant. So anyways, feel free to dig into some of this information in the follow-up. A couple other things to highlight here is that there is a roughly 10% of people that strongly disagree that WIC approved items are clearly labeled. 13% or so that disagree that store staff are knowledgeable, but also keeping in mind that just over 50% for those 2 questions, respondents agreed that the food items are labeled and the grocery store staff is knowledgeable. And then one other thing to highlight is that we talk a lot about the stigma around the use of the nutrition safety net programs and SNAP and WIC and what it could be like in the store to use an EBT card around other people that may have thoughts or feelings about your use of that. And so it was interesting that almost 3/4 of participants said that they did feel comfortable using their WIC benefits, which is encouraging. So I would encourage you all to dig into some of these numbers afterwards. They're quite interesting. Next on our list, we're going to hear from a local WIC expert. I didn't see her on the call when we were first starting, so I'm not sure that she has joined, unfortunately. So we may have to speed through this, but do you see her hand?
I'm here.
Oh, great. Perfect.
Awesome.
Hello, Melissa. Thanks for joining us.
Hello. No problem. Thank you for asking me to join.
Of course. Just to give a little background, TJC used a story collecting tool back in the fall of this past year, asking about what WIC shoppers, how they felt about the cash value benefit associated with the WIC benefit package. And Melissa had some insightful things to add. And so when we were thinking about this conversation, we decided to call her up and see if she might want to join us. So Melissa, I'll let you kick it off, and maybe if you'll just start with an introduction, where you live, a little bit about your kids, maybe how long you've been a WIC shopper.
Okay. Yes, my name's Melissa. I've lived in Nashville, Tennessee all my life, and I have 7 children actually. My husband and I have been married and together for 20 years, and the WIC program has been a huge blessing for us. When, like you said about the increase for the fruits and vegetables, part of it was like a huge help, because that's the hardest thing for us to able to purchase at the stores, because those things are so expensive. And so that extra benefit that increased was like a huge blessing. I use 99% of my benefit every month. Everybody likes everything that we get on it. So it's definitely a huge blessing and a great program to be able to use.
Thanks. We'll just give you a few questions here. We won't pepper you with questions for too long.
No
But
problem.
to start it off, if you can remember way back when you first enrolled in WIC, and maybe your subsequent recertification periods with your other children, do you remember what information was shared with you when you first enrolled in WIC about the shopping experience, and what resources there were to facilitate that?
So they give you a breakdown of where you can go and what benefits are able to be used. It was way more difficult years ago to find the items you needed, to find stores that provided the items you needed, versus now. And now you even have an app to use that you can scan the items in the store if they don't have a little tag that says which item. You can scan it and it'll tell you whether or not it's usable or not. That's a huge help. It's just gotten way better over the years with where you can use it, how you can use it, and things like that, versus when I first started with it.
Mm-hmm. And I know you touched on it a little bit just then, but other than the WIC shopper app, have there been any other developments you feel like with WIC? Like what has made your shopping experience get easier over the years, in addition to what you mentioned about the WIC shopper app?
The card as well. I don't remember. I don't think it's been a card the whole time.
You're right.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly how it was. I think it was like little certificates or something, and you had to take the certificate in. That was kind of a lot, and then it was kind of a lot for the teacher. I mean, the people at the store. They kind of wanted to give you issues when they saw you bringing that certificate. They kind of you would get some hesitation from the cashiers at some point. Some of them, not all of them, but some of them. So they would sometimes make you feel some type of way. But now that they've made it with that card, it's like nobody even really kind of knows that you're using the WIC, or that it is a WIC, product or payment method. So it's just been a huge blessing, and gotten easier over the years to be able to use it more comfortable and all of that, really.
That's awesome to hear. Yeah, we hear that from other people as well, that in comparison to the certificates or vouchers, as they're sometimes called, that the EBT card is a lot more user friendly.
And we have someone in the chat agreeing with all of that and the updates to the EWIC card.
Awesome.
don't-
Melissa, I wanted to ask you briefly too, about like the general labeling of products. I think that's something that we encounter in stores that each store may do differently. Do you really rely on your WIC shopper app to tell you what items are eligible, or do you find that like some particular stores labeling is helpful, or I guess
Yes.
just general
So,
information about labeling, your thoughts and experiences?
yes. So Walmart versus Kroger's. Kroger's is a little more difficult. They don't highlight as much and show you as much WIC items as much as Walmart does. Walmart's pretty good about any item that can be purchased with WIC is labeled. So no, I do not use the app to scan everything that I use to verify if it's a WIC product, because I really have gotten it kind of down pat, exactly what is eligible to be used or something. I might check if it's the ounce is correct, or something like that, or particular yogurt or juice or something, because those are sometimes those are kind of tricky. But Walmart's pretty good about it. Kroger's is a little harder when it comes to trying to figure out some items, but um, those are my two go-to stores, is
Okay.
the Kroger's
Okay.
and Walmart for my items. I don't know too many other stores or grocery stores that accept the WIC. I know the little small grocery stores and stuff don't do that anymore. That kind of is difficult.
Okay. Well, that's helpful to know that, despite the fact that you are still adept at using the WIC shopper app, that you also still look at the labels at the store and use the labels. And speaking of the Krogers and the Walmarts of the world, do you find that in your area there are stores that are WIC vendors that are accessible to you, or do you have to travel a long ways to get there?
Nope. It's pretty accessible in my area. But like I said, the two major stores, or the two main stores, are Kroger's and Walmart. Walmart is my go-to for most of everything. But nope, it's pretty easy and pretty close to get to the stores that we need to get to in my area.
Good. Okay. That's great. That is great. Just a couple more questions and then we'll move on. But when you have a question about your WIC benefits or maybe an eligible product in the store, who do you think you would ask that to? And if that has happened before, what was your experience in asking that question and getting an answer?
So it would be the cashier as I'm checking out. And if it wasn't eligible, or if I had a question, I would just ask them, and then we would go from there on whether or not the item would be purchased or can be purchased. But I usually wait until I go through the line and ask any questions that need to be asked.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. That's really helpful. Is there anything else that you want to add as a WIC expert in the room about the shopping experience?
Nope, I'm just very blessed to be able to participate in the program, and I would love to be able to, help anybody else out, spread the word for them to be able to participate as well.
Well, thanks so much for being here, Melissa. You are doing just that by being on the call. So we appreciate you being an expert in the room about all of this. And feel free to continue to chime in as the conversation goes on if you have something you want to share.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Melissa.
Thank you guys. Bye-bye.
Okay. Thanks, Melissa. We will keep on keeping on. But we wanted to pause a moment and see if there were any questions about the information we've covered or anything that Melissa shared. Obviously you can put those in the chat or unmute yourself and us or Melissa can answer. Okay. Well, thanks again, Melissa. If somebody puts a question in the chat or unmutes themselves, then we will happily answer it. Okay. So the next piece of our research, once again, part of it was the WIC participant or the eligible individual, and then the next piece was the WIC vendor. And so we want to highlight some things that we also learned from that. Much like the other research that we showed you, we conducted a survey and then did interviews instead of focus groups. And so we had 91 survey responses to our grocer survey. Of those 91 survey responses, 95% of the responses were from individuals that were WIC vendors. So those that were not WIC vendors are not included in this data. And then we conducted 13 interviews, all with individuals who have worked in or oversaw a WIC authorized store. And I think we need to especially highlight, and I think Rob, our partner, is on the call. So Rob, I hope you're giving yourself a pat on the back here, but this was a challenging area to dive into. I think oftentimes the for-profit and the nonprofit world don't intersect too much, other than maybe one funding or helping fund the other. But we were looking for much more than funding. We were looking for a connection to the world that we don't often work in. And so none of this would have been possible without Rob Eichert at the Tennessee Grocers and Convenience Store Association, and people like David that are on the call to share later. And so thanks for being the connecting point between TJC and grocers across the state. But just to run through some highlights of the research, 89% of the respondents represented a grocery store. The other options that they selected were either a convenience store or a pharmacy. We didn't have anyone in the data that represented a gas station, which was another response. 67% of the individuals selected that their position were that they were managers. And then the actual next largest percentage was that 9% were cashiers. And so we saw a smattering of respondents coming from all different positions across the stores. 16% of the respondents were responding based on their experience in one single store. However, 84% of the respondents worked in or oversaw multiple stores. Oh, sorry, I just said that totally backwards. 16% worked or oversaw multiple stores, whereas the vast majority worked in one single store. Okay.
And I can take it from here. Hi, I'm Gary. I am the nutrition intern for TJC this summer, and I will go into a little bit more with this. So we looked at how many counties we had represented in our responses, and we had all of the 4 major regions in Tennessee, which are around Memphis, Nashville, Chattanooga, and Knoxville, represented in our responses. And 67 of our respondents said that they interact with WIC through checking out customers with WIC benefits. And additionally, respondents commonly said that they answered customer questions about WIC and informed other staff members about WIC. But it wasn't as common for our respondents to answer that they didn't regularly interact with WIC, or that saying that they worked with WIC licensing or regulation requirements, or that they labeled the WIC approved items. And the majority of our respondents said either that they were extremely familiar with WIC or moderately familiar with WIC, which is great. A couple of our respondents said that they were somewhat familiar and slightly familiar with WIC as well. And 92% of our respondents said that they were trained by a WIC office, health department, or their store management. 8% of people said that they did not receive WIC training at all. And when respondents were asked about the WIC information they had received in their training, they most often said that they checked out WIC customers, or that they dealt with WIC customers through customer service, or that they knew or were interacting with the food package information. WIC is a little bit more complex in its food package information. It differentiates by whether you're breastfeeding, whether you're not breastfeeding, what age your child is, whether you're pregnant, what age your child is. I already said that, but so knowing that food package information is something that our respondents said that they understood and they knew about. And the least common responses were that they were taught how to use the WIC Shopper app. We had about 30 respondents to that. And they also didn't respond often that they were taught on resources for staff to share with customers. This would be like a book that exemplifies WIC products. And our least common response completely was that no information was shared about WIC in training. And participants most often said that if they had a customer asking about their WIC benefits when they were trying to shop, they said that they used their knowledge of WIC from their trainings, or that they would print out the customer's WIC benefit package. This is actually something I had no idea about, so thank you, TJC, for teaching me about this, that a cashier or a manager can print out the WIC benefit package as a customer comes in. Super exciting. And respondents least often said that they were unable to answer questions or that they provided informational materials from the WIC office. And finally, this is a creation by Excel. It is just basically describing the more familiar a staff member is with their position, the more often they are to say that they use knowledge of WIC from their trainings to answer customer questions. That's the long yellow bars on with the moderately familiar and the extremely familiar. That's respondents saying that they were using the knowledge of WIC from their trainings. And the less well-informed staff are about WIC, the more that they refer customers to the health department and the clinic. That is the purple bar over there, and you can see that that's highest when staff said that they were slightly familiar, and gets lower and lower over time. Right.
Thanks, Scoury. The next portion of the survey was about WIC promotion and labeling. And so just a couple of highlights here. 71% of the respondents said that they did have WIC signage visible from inside and outside of the store. And only 2% of the respondents said that they did not promote their store as a WIC vendor. So that's exciting. And then the second piece of the promotion and labeling is that 81% of respondents said that their items were visibly tagged with something in regards to WIC, and then only 11% said that their items were not labeled with WIC at all. Oh, goodness. These next 3 slides at the very end of the survey, we asked some open-ended questions. And so these are going to be summarizing that information. The first question that we asked was, what are the benefits that your store experiences as a result of participating in WIC? And then you'll notice in the diagram on the left that there is some color variation between like the shades of green and then the gray. That is how our software that we use, Qualtrics, defined the responses as either really positive or neutral. And so you can see here, there's just some like general summary of the categories that we put the responses into. Most respondents talked about the increased product sales, which I think brings us back to one of the first points that we made in this presentation, that people using WIC benefits brings WIC dollars into stores. And so that is a reason that WIC vendors want to participate in WIC. And then secondly was new customers. And then there were also several people that responded in altruistic ways and talked about how that they liked participating in WIC because it was an opportunity to help the community and to help provide nutritious food to moms and their kids. And then the smallest number of responses were just individuals saying that there was no benefit that they saw. Here you see red because Qualtrics coded these as negative, which makes sense because we asked about the burdens of the store that they experience as a result of participating in WIC. As you can see, it's exciting here that there is a larger gray bubble and that a lot of respondents said that there was not a burden to participating in WIC. But you can see several of the other responses are things that we generally know about the difficulties of the shopping experience. So confusion around WIC benefit packages and what you can purchase. People talked about training and that was a burden. Store flow and that a confused customer may cause a slower line at checkout. They also talked about the scanning of WIC products, guidelines, and an approved product list, labeling, minimum stock requirements. Just one thing to note is that though there are more circles on this page than there were on the last, It doesn't mean that there were more burdens mentioned. There was just more diversity in the burdens that were mentioned than were the benefits. And so these are just the general categories of the burdens that were mentioned, but none all too surprising. And then lastly, we asked just generally if there was anything else that they wanted to add as they finished up the survey. Once again, lots of positive responses around just generally liking WIC because it was an opportunity to help people. Several people mentioned the WIC Shopper app, which we also heard Melissa talk about. The app and its benefits. Some more negative remarks around just general misunderstanding of WIC benefits, store operating issues, and then the majority of responses had nothing else that they would like to add.
Okay.
Okay. That's the end of the grocer research. Sorry if that was a lot thrown at you. I think, David, before we jump into the information that you have with us, if we can just pause for 30 seconds or so and see if anybody has any questions. Obviously, feel free to put those in the chat or come off mute.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll keep going then. Like Anna Grace said, we're done giving you all of the research. It's a lot, but it's so fascinating, and we hope that you will look through it again when we send the slides out. We are now going to transition. We had Melissa speak earlier when we talked about our participant research. We are now switching gears, and we are going to hear from David Dunn at Houchins Food Group, who's going to share a little bit about his perspective of WIC as a staff member at a WIC vending store. So David, if you want to come off mute and just start out by telling us what your role is and how many grocery stores you oversee and where they're located.
Okay, can you all hear me?
Yes, we
Great.
can.
Great. Okay, well, I am currently a Revionics analyst in the pricing department, but for the past 20 years, I was a front-end pricing coordinator supervisor. We have a total of 14 stores where I'm located. We have 10 in East Tennessee, 3 in Virginia, and 1 in Kentucky.
Awesome. Okay. Can you now tell us a little bit about how you interact with WIC and also how you were trained on it, where your knowledge comes from about the WIC program?
Okay, well, for the past 20 years, as I said, I have ran register many times and processed many WIC transactions back to when they were actual WIC vouchers and not the cards. And I've also hung numerous price tags that do show that if they are WIC eligible over the past 20 years. We did have orientation when you go through training on WIC, and then of course when you're on the register, we go through training as well as how to process the cards. And then of course once a year with the local Tennessee WIC office, we go and attend an annual meeting where they cover any changes or updates to the program.
Okay. Tell us about how the Houchins stores advertise themselves as a WIC vendor and how they label WIC products.
Okay, well, all of our stores should, when the customers walk in, they should be a decal on the doors that do say that we accept the Tennessee WIC cards and actually has a picture of the card so customers will know. And then also all of our WIC approved products have the actual word WIC at the bottom of the tags. So every item that is WIC approved does say WIC on it. So it makes it easier for the customer and for the employees.
Okay.
I was just gonna, David, can you describe the WIC label for those of us visual learners out here? If it's just like a W on the price tag, or if it says WIC, I don't know, the color.
It
What does it look like?
actually says WIC, and then most of our stores the tags are yellow and they're kind of like a bib, so it kind of like hangs over the shelf a little bit, but it does say the actual word WIC on the tag.
Okay. Awesome. And do you, feel like from your perspective that that's a helpful tool for shoppers, but then also for the store staff?
I think it's a huge thing. I think it's very helpful for, the WIC participant, especially, maybe the newer ones that are not sure, and where there's so many, more items, available than what there used to be. And then just for, my perspective and the employees, it's, there's almost no way that you can remember every single item. So you can always, if they ask a question about peanut butter, you can go over to the peanut butter and look at all the tags that say WIC and say, here's all the options that are available.
Mm-hmm. And one more question about labeling, and then I'll hush. But
You're fine.
we saw a couple of responses in the survey talking about how labeling can be a burden and difficult to keep up with. And so, what are your thoughts on that? Do you also see labeling as something that is maybe difficult for grocers to keep up with as products may evolve and approved products lists change?
I don't necessarily think it's a burden. I think it's gotten better throughout the years with technology, so now, internally, we can flag the items that are WIC eligible, in our system, and then it automatically prints on the tag. So, as those come from the APL, from the state, our system will automatically assign that item as WIC. So the tag will automatically print out as WIC. Sometimes, the bib part of the tag does come off, and so you wouldn't know it's WIC. So, trying to catch those, sometimes is a little, I won't say trouble, but it may take you a week or so to catch, but those are going to be very few. So I think it's gotten much better as far as the labeling of the tags on our end.
Okay. It's so helpful for us to, and I hope everyone else on the call to hear that perspective and the fact that it's a bib and how that works. And so thank you for sharing that. Okay, just a couple more questions for you. When kind of questions or problems arise, are there, kind of any question or problem that consistently arises? Confusions. A lot of what we've heard is confusion around milk and what milk is in each different package. So I'm curious if there are consistent problems that arise and what Houchin staff do to navigate those problems.
Well, I think one of the biggest things, I won't say biggest, but sometimes items get brought up that aren't WIC. So for our cashiers, our registers will tell them on the screen if it's WIC. It actually comes up the word WIC right there, so they can look at the screen and know if it is WIC or not. But they also have the food list at the registers that they can get out and check as well. And then, we're more than happy to run back and switch out those items and get the correct one. But I would say that's what I see the most of is, the wrong item maybe being brought up to the register.
Yeah, I think that's consistent with what we hear from the participant side of things about just general confusion about what can be purchased and what can't be purchased.
Right.
Okay, we've heard from Melissa, and Maggie is sharing a lot in the chat as well about this. Tell us about your knowledge of the WIC Shopper app, and if you find that to be a useful tool, at least from the participant side, we're hearing that it's really helpful.
Yeah, I've not actually used it myself. I've seen a little bit of it on it, some slides. But I have talked to several store managers, and from what they're saying, it is very helpful. All the different things like Melissa was saying, they can scan the product and know right then if it's WIC. So it's definitely helpful on our side as well, where they do bring up the correct item and they don't have to wait, while we do and go and get the right item. So I think it's a very good tool.
Good. Awesome. Well, that's what we've got for you. I think we'll take a moment and see if anyone on the call has any questions to add as well. Okay. All right. Thank you, David. We really appreciate it. And we'll keep going. Again, please just let us know what questions you have.
Hey, ladies, this is Rob.
Yes, Rob.
Hey, I just want to say thank you so much to Tennessee Justice Center for allowing Tennessee grocers to be part of the WIC Chow grant process, and for taking the perspective of the WIC vendor into perspective, and the recognition that it's sort of a partnership between the WIC program and the vendors serving in a mutual way the same customer. And so thank you for that. And I really want to thank David and all of the other Tennessee grocer people out there who gave their input to this survey. It's some really valuable information, and I think it's going to help us become better vendors to this particular customer community. So thank you.
Rob, like we said in the beginning, we would not have all of those survey responses or interviews without Rob's help connecting us. So we have this great research because of you, Rob. So thanks.
Okay, so bottom line is that we are learning that there are WIC dollars that are going unspent, and so what can we do to make the shopping experience better? And I just want to add a caveat here as we kind of dive into the final portion of our presentation that Ann Dobson and I and the TJC team, we are not experts on this, and so there are lots of people on the call that have more experience working in a grocery store. There are people on the call that have more experience shopping with their WIC benefits. And so through our conversations with grocers and with WIC participants across Tennessee, these are some themes that we've pulled out that would be the ideal gold standard if that could exist for the WIC shopping experience. And so I just don't want you to think that we are naive over here, assuming that all of these things are easy peasy to fix, and then boom, every participant is going to spend 100% of their benefits. So just keep that in mind, but we're going to talk briefly about some summaries and ways in which we think that the shopping experience could be made better and some tangible tools to do so.
Mm-hmm.
So for starters, there's been lots of conversation around the WIC Shopper app. What we know about the WIC Shopper app is that it's helpful. Not every grocer knew about the app in every conversation that we had, but those that did had nothing but positive things to say about the app and its use for both the customers and the grocers. Promotion for the app in the store would really encourage more grocers and shoppers to download it. One thing that we like to mention about the app is that you don't actually have to be a WIC participant to log into the app and be able to scan products. And so maybe this app could even be promoted to your average retailer so that they also, when, like you mentioned, David, the tag falls off of a WIC approved product, the grocer could know that they could use that app to scan the product, and then they would know whether or not it was WIC eligible. So we love the idea of the WIC Shopper app being promoted more. Secondly, we wanted to mention labeling. Overwhelmingly, labeling from the participant side and the grocer side was mentioned that it was helpful. However, it's also mentioned from the grocer side that it can be difficult to keep up with. And so we know that properly labeling the WIC products can be a helpful tool to reduce confusion for both the grocer and the customer, but that labels don't erase all of the confusion. For example, we've heard about milk several times, and that you may be eligible for milk, but it may be a different milk if you are breastfeeding versus if you are a 1-year-old. And so that labels don't erase the confusion totally. And then lastly, we've had lots of fruitful conversations about what resources would be helpful to have in the store. We've already mentioned one, maybe being a promotion for the WIC Shopper app. But just having general information about the WIC program, maybe even contact information for the local county health department, could help answer some of those questions, and then also give grocers tools to not feel like they are relying only on their knowledge to answer questions about WIC, because obviously they have to have knowledge about lots of different things that customers need in the store. And then lastly, we had several conversations with grocers where they mentioned resources that they had on hand, but it would be lovely to be able to standardize what that is to help streamline more WIC transactions.
Okay. So we'd also love to hear from you if you have thoughts on what makes the WIC shopping experience easier, and then just general questions. We are kind of on the final tail of the
Script.
presentation and just have a few resources to share. So any questions, suggestions, thoughts, we'd love to hear them over the next few minutes.
Let's journey on.
Okay, we'll keep going then. So we mentioned that we have some resources for you. The first being our upcoming toolkit, connecting WIC vendors to the shopping experience, tools to streamline WIC shopping and increase spending in Tennessee stores. So of course, we've done all this research, we have analyzed it, we've shared it with you, and we have used it to create a toolkit with a variety of different resources. The toolkit is coming soon, so just a sneak peek at the cover right now, but you will get it. We'll make sure that everyone who registered for the webinar gets it, and then it will of course go on our website, and we will be promoting it through our networks, and Rob Eichard will have it to share with his grocers as well. So this is coming. This will cover a little bit more of our research and share the different tools that we've created, similar to this last slide Anna Grace just went through. That's what you can expect. Okay, the other thing we're really excited about is our new flyer promoting the WIC Shopper app. We have talked extensively over the last hour about the benefit of the app for the grocer and the participant. And so one of the flyers in our new toolkit is this one right here. Again, this will be on our website. It will be on our social media and in the toolkit that you'll be receiving. We're hoping that by providing this to vendors, they can post this in the grocery store and maybe on a bulletin board or near checkout and encourage WIC shoppers to download the app, and also encourage their grocery staff, since we've just talked about how beneficial it can be for grocery store staff as well. Okay, for those of you that I guess know me and Anna Grace well, look, you see us from WIC Champions. So we always have to plug our WIC Champions group. This is our monthly WIC working group. Anna Grace and I run this. If you loved listening to us today and want to keep working with us, we would love to have you on WIC Champions. We meet on the second Thursday each month at 9 a.m. Central and talk about a different aspect of WIC. As our research has been winding down, we've been talking about that, and we'll be sharing the toolkits through that network as well. So link to register is there. Of course, we'll get it to you in the slides in the follow-up, but we'd love to have you join. We're always looking for new partners in this work. Beyond just WIC Champions, our anti-hunger team runs a variety of different working groups. So again, you'll get all this later, but we also have a SNAP working group, a Healthy Meals, Healthy Kids working group that is talking about school meals for all, summer EBT advocacy call, and then we run a quarterly college hunger call. So if any of this interests you, please join. These are regular calls in addition to this monthly webinar that we have as well. Okay, if you've signed up for all of the working groups and you still want more information, Nutrition Note might be for you as well. Nutrition Note is our monthly anti-hunger newsletter. We have a little bit on SNAP, WIC, TANF, and summer EBT, and school meals for all. So if you want to stay up to date on the happenings of these programs, state and federal level, our newsletter is a great source for that information, and we hope that you'll register or get on that list as well. And Chris has put in the chat the events page that has registration links for all of the monthly working groups, as well as our topic specific webinars that change regularly. And then our resources, just so that you have this part of the toolkit and part of the resources Anna Grace and I have been creating, are some different WIC fact sheets. We have those in 3 different languages, English, Spanish, and Arabic. On our website, of course, are our SNAP sheets as well. And then at the bottom are some different data sources for this information from today's call. And that is it. Here is our contact information. Again, we are Anna Dobson and Anna Grace, and Chris and Geraldine are also on the call if you have SNAP related questions, but we will stay on for a few more minutes and are happy to take any questions. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
We really appreciate it. Everybody have a good rest of the day. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for coming.